The sound of sirens pierced through the night air. I knew I didn't have much time. I reached my hand through the broken glass window and grabbed hold of the gold bracelet. I had never done anything like that before, but I was desperate. Suddenly, I heard a car screech up behind me. "Put your hands in the air," shouted a male voice. I turned around to see who had spoken. 2 police officers were standing in front of me, their guns pointing straight towards me. I had a split second to decide what to do. I could either run for it or give myself up. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any more shocking stories. I was just about to make a run for it when the female officer said, "Joel, is that you?" "Mom?" I replied. "Dad?" I couldn't believe it. My parents were going to arrest me. But then they did something I never expected. The 2 officers lowered their guns. "Just go home, Joel," said the male officer. "We will sort this out." "I'm sorry, Dad," I said. "I have to do this for Tess." I put the bracelet in my pocket and went straight home. You're probably wondering what all that was about. Well, if you want to find out more, be sure to stay tuned until the end of the video. I knew Tess was out of my league, but it didn't stop me from falling in love with her. From the first time I set eyes on her, I knew she was the one for me. I would do anything to get her to date me. It was halfway through the school year when Tess came to our school. She was like a breath of fresh air. I remember her walking into the school hall and everyone stopped what they were doing and just stared at her. I had never seen anyone so beautiful in all my life. It took me about a week to pluck up the courage to talk to her. She was sitting in the school canteen by herself. I got my lunch and went over to her table. "Mind if I join you?" I asked. "Sure," she said, smiling. My heart skipped a beat, and it felt like 1,000 butterflies were dancing through my stomach. "I'm Joel," I said. "Tess," she replied. We chatted through the whole lunch break. Tess told me how she was an only child. She had recently moved to our town because her dad had got a new job here. "I miss my friends," she said. I noticed the gold locket hanging around her neck. "That's a pretty necklace. Did you get that from your friends?" "Oh, this? No, this was a present from my ex-boyfriend. He was always showering me with gifts." My heart sank. There was no way I could compete with that. She was obviously used to getting expensive presents from her boyfriends. I didn't have the money to be able to buy her things. As I walked home from school that afternoon, I thought about how unfair life was. Some kids had everything they wanted, whilst people like me had nothing. It wasn't as though my parents didn't have the money. They both had really good jobs. But they wanted me to get things through my own hard work, not have everything handed to me on a plate. My dad's favorite thing to say to me was, "Money doesn't grow on trees. If you want to make something of your life, then you have to work hard for it." My mom and dad were both police officers. That's how they had met each other. They had both joined the police cadets when they were 17 years old and had been together ever since. I wanted that for me and Tess, too. I had to find a way to get her expensive gifts so that she would want to date me. So that's why I broke into the jewelry store. I had seen the gold bracelet that afternoon as I walked past the shop window. The glare from the afternoon sunshine reflected off it, and it blinded me for a second. I knew that Tess would love it. I couldn't believe that my parents had caught me stealing it. I had waited up for them to come home. When they came through the door, my dad didn't say anything. He just looked disappointed in me. "Don't worry, we have sorted it all out," said Mom. "Your fingerprints have all been cleaned up. No one will know it was you that broke in." "Thanks, Mom," I said. "It won't happen again." They asked me why I had tried to break in and steal, and when I told them it was for a girl, they looked even more disappointed. I apologized, and thankfully they didn't ground me for that long. The next morning, I set off early for school. I wanted to be at the school gates before Tess arrived. When I saw her walking down the street towards me, I reached into my pocket and pulled out the gold bracelet. "Hi, Tess, I've got you a present," I said. Tess looked at the bracelet and beamed. "Thank you, Joel, it's beautiful." She took the bracelet and put it on her wrist. "I love it," she said. "It must have cost you a fortune." I shrugged my shoulders. Nothing is too expensive for the prettiest girl in the school. Tess looked at me and blushed. Are you doing anything on Saturday?" I stammered. "No." "Do you want to go to the movies or something?" Tess laughed. "Are you asking me out on a date, Joel?" Yes, I am," I said nervously. "I'd love to." I couldn't believe it. Tess had agreed to go out with me. Tess and I went on our first date that weekend. It wasn't long before we were spending every minute of our free time together. We got on so well. We were definitely soulmates. I couldn't risk losing her, so I began to steal things from other shops as well. I know I had told my parents that it wouldn't happen again, but I just wanted to make Tess happy. It started off with small things, but eventually I was stealing Gucci handbags for her and designer clothes. It was easy not to get caught. Over the years, I had often heard my parents talking about where stores had their security cameras and alarm systems. I got to the stage where I was stealing something almost every other day. I began to get a bit cocky about it, taking more and more risks. One time I was in town shopping with my mom and I saw a pair of expensive trainers that I knew Tess would love. When the assistant wasn't looking, I took them and shoved them into my bag. I held my breath as we walked out of the shop, hoping that the alarm wouldn't go off. It was silent. As we walked down the street, I smiled to myself. I had just got away with it. But then Mom stopped walking. She turned to me and said, "Joel, I know you took the trainers." I looked at her in shock. "I'm sorry, I won't do it again," I said. "Please, promise me that is the last time you will steal anything." "I promise." I meant what I said. It was time to turn over a new leaf. I decided that from then on, I wouldn't steal anymore. Tess and I were good now. I didn't need to give her any more presents. Everything was perfect until one day I was sitting in my bedroom when I heard my mom calling up to me. "Joel, Tess is here." I went downstairs. "Hi, Tess," I said in surprise. "I thought we were supposed to meet up later." "Can we talk, Joel?" she said. We went outside and sat in the garden. "Joel, where have you been getting all the stuff that you keep giving me?" she asked. I was caught off guard for a second. I had never expected her to ask me. "It's just things I've bought for you." But Tess wouldn't let it go. She kept on and on at me. "I know you don't have the money to buy such expensive things," she said. Finally, I admitted it. I told her that I'd been stealing from stores to get her the things she liked. I thought that she would never want to see me again, now that she knew the truth. But she surprised me. "Oh, that's so sweet of you," she said. "I can't believe you would do something like that for me." I gave a sigh of relief. Everything was going to be fine. "Joel," she said, "do you think you could get something really special for me?" "What?" "There is this big crown that I've had my eyes on." She opened her phone and showed me a picture of the crown. I looked at her in astonishment. Was she crazy? "That's one of the crown jewels," I said. "It belongs to the Queen of England." Tess just smiled at me. "Come on, if you do this, then we can become official. This will be the last heist you have to do." I thought about what she had said. I knew that I shouldn't do it, but I really wanted her to be my girlfriend. Even though I had promised my mom that I wouldn't steal again. If I did this last one job, we would be official and all my dreams would come true. "Okay," I said, "I'll do it." Over the next few weeks, I began to make my plan. I knew it wouldn't be an easy job, but I had access to my parents' computer so I could tap into the security system for the vault where the crown was kept. I spent hours studying the layout of the building. Eventually, I was ready. I waited until it got dark and crept out of the house. I sat outside the building and waited. I knew that at 10 p.m. the guards would change over. That's when I would make my move. At exactly 10 o'clock, I heard the footsteps of the new guard walking towards the building. As the two guards spoke to each other, I darted into the open door of the building. Nobody had seen me. I crept along the hallway towards the room, keeping the crown. My heart was beating so loudly, I felt sure that the guard would hear it. I took out my phone and tapped into the building's security system. I disabled the alarm and cameras. I opened the door to the room, praying that the alarm wouldn't ring. It didn't. There, in front of me, was the crown. The diamonds and rubies on it glistened in the moonlight. I picked up the crown and was just about to put it into my backpack when the door burst open. "Put your hands in the air," someone shouted from behind me. I couldn't believe it. Had my parents caught me again? I turned around to see who was behind me, but it wasn't my parents standing there. It was Tess. "Tess?" I whispered. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to arrest you," she said. "What are you talking about?" She laughed. "You have no idea, do you? I'm an undercover cop." I couldn't believe what she was saying. "I finally caught you." "But I'm in love with you. I thought we had something really special." Tess was just about to say something when I heard someone coming into the room. It was my parents. "Mom, Dad, please help me. She's an undercover cop. She's going to arrest me," I shouted. "Run for your life, Joel. We'll take care of her," said Dad. I ran out of the building as fast as I could. I had no idea how my parents had known where I was, but I sure was pleased to see them. I sat and waited all night, but my parents didn't come home. I tried calling their phones, but they just went straight to voicemail. I had no idea what they would do with Tess. The next morning, I got a message from my mom. "Everything has been taken care of," she wrote. "We're at the abandoned warehouse on the industrial estate." I got dressed and went straight to the warehouse. When I got there, I saw Tess was sitting on a chair in the middle of the room. She had been blindfolded and was tied to the chair. My mom and dad were both standing in front of her. "What are you going to do with her?" I asked. "We will keep her here until we can decide what to do with her," said Dad. "How did you know where I was?" Mom and Dad told me that they had been following my every move ever since the first time I had stolen something. "We know that you've been stealing all this time," said Mom. "When we saw that you had been using our computer to look at the vault, we knew that you were planning something," said Dad. "I'm so sorry. I promise I will never do anything like this." But before I could finish my sentence, my dad put his hand over my mouth. "There's someone outside," he whispered in my ear. "Go out the back door and make a run for it." As I went out the door, I heard the front door come crashing down. "Police, don't move!" I ran to the front of the building and hid behind a big bush. There were 4 or 5 police cars parked outside the building, their lights flashing. I watched as they brought my parents out in handcuffs. They put them into the cars and drove away. I knew that my parents would be going to jail for a very long time for kidnapping Tess. I'm on the run now. My life is in shambles. What should I do? Should I hand myself in to the police, or should I continue to live my life on the run? Please help me decide. Leave your comments down below.
Are you okay?
Daniela, my girlfriend, looked at me concerned. Sweat rolled down my face like a fat lady rolling down a hill. The armpits of my t-shirt were soaked as the line moved forward. I've never been to an airport before, and my parents warned me about the metal detectors and scanners used there.
"Sir, step through the scanner, please."
The officer looked at me annoyed. Daniela was already through, and she beckoned for me to come towards her. I gulped hard as I stepped through the scanner. The scanner alarm rang loudly, and I froze. What happened next changed my life forever. Hi, my name is Adam. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Smash that notification bell too, so you will know when new crazy stories like mine are out. Okay, let's get back to it. The scanner alarm rang loudly and I froze. I watched as the officers huddled around the scanner. One of the officers walked towards me.
"Sir, we have to take you to a second screening. We detected metal in your arm."
In his arm?
Daniela looked at me confused. The officer ignored me and grabbed me by the arm and dragged me into a room and closed the door. I heard loud voices outside the room, one of them being Daniela. I didn't know what to expect. What did the officer mean they detected metal in my arm? Suddenly, the door burst open and a man in a black suit walked in and began to interrogate me.
"Who are you working for? Where are you going? Who are you going to meet?"
I stayed in that room for about 2 hours as they attacked me with questions until they realized that they made a mistake and I had no idea what they were talking about. I walked out of the room tired and embarrassed.
Are you okay?
Daniela hugged me. "Let's cancel the trip. All I want to do is go home." As we drove home, Daniela didn't ask me anything. It wasn't until I was ready for bed that I opened up to her about what happened in the room. "What I don't understand is," I said as I looked at the scar on my upper arm, "what metal are they talking about?" My parents told me when I was about 3 years old that a dog bit my arm, and that's how I ended up with the scar. One thing that I need to mention before I go on is my parents and I never went into any place that had any scanner or metal detectors. They told me that they gave you cancer, and that's how Grandpa died. If the place did have scanners or metal detectors, we just didn't go in. When Daniela suggested that we go on a trip and actually go on a plane, my mind was blown. After much convincing, I decided to try it. Now this happens.
I think you should go and see what it is.
Daniela looked at me as she stroked my face lovingly. 2 days later, Daniela and I walked into the private hospital. We explained to Dr. Hossein what we needed to do. He drew a circle on my arm and we began preparation for the surgery. After 2 hours of surgery, I was wheeled into a private room to recuperate. When I opened my eyes, there stood Daniela and Dr. Hossein.
"Ah, Adam, your surgery went well and we removed the metal from your arm."
Dr. Hossein handed me a key in a small plastic bag.
"After a few hours, you'll be able to leave. Until then, get some rest."
Dr. Hossein exited the room.
Do you think your parents had something to do with hiding that key in your arm?
Yes, but now we need to find out what the key is for. Later that evening, I was discharged and given a prescription for painkillers. During dinner, Daniela and I discussed how we were going to proceed when a news broadcast came across the TV.
After 20 years of being in prison for the famous 53 million Hillary Stanton bank robbery, Elijah Houston was released today from prison. Police reports say that the money was never recovered. To date, no other person has been charged along with Houston.
Daniela whistled.
That's a lot of money. If I ever get that, I'll never work another day of my life.
I wonder where he was able to hide $53 million in the past 20 years. He had to have accomplices.
Imagine being the only one caught for the robbery and you had to spend 20 years of your life in jail. I would be pissed. Whoever his accomplices are better have his money waiting.
Before heading to bed that night, I asked Daniela to drop me at my parents' house the next day so I could look for a secret door or anything that the key would fit into. The next day, it felt weird staking out my parents' home. As soon as my parents left, I went into the house. I looked under every rug, behind every bookshelf and wardrobe, and even tapped the floorboards in the basement. You know what I came up with? Absolutely nothing. I hurried back to the car. When I got in, I turned to Daniela. That was a bust.
Maybe you can get some answers tomorrow when you go for dinner.
I kissed Daniela and smiled. I knew there was a reason. I love you so much. You're so smart. Daniela laughed and we pulled away from my parents' house. I had a sinking feeling that if my parents had no problem hiding a key in the arm of their 3-year-old son, that tomorrow's dinner will definitely be more than I bargained for. The next night, when we pulled up to the house, a strange car was in the driveway. I walked around the house slowly, not sure what to expect, when I heard loud voices coming from the kitchen. I hid under the window and listened.
Where is the money?
The stranger's voice snarled.
We hid the key to the chest in a safe place. Trust us.
Dad's voice shook as he spoke.
I trusted the two of you 20 years ago. While the both of you were able to go on living your lives, I rotted in jail.
We'll get the key tonight and we'll meet at our rendezvous spot.
Mom said calmly.
You better. You have until 10 p.m. and all my money had better be there.
I heard the kitchen door open and slam shut. I sunk into the shadows as I watched the stranger walk away. A few seconds later, I heard the sound of an engine and screeching tires, which indicated that the man was no longer there. I needed answers, and the only person who had them were my parents. I walked to my parents' front door, plastered a smile on my face, and walked in. Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm here. I watched as my parents walked out of the kitchen, all smiles, and both gave me the normal greeting of a hug and a kiss.
How are you? And where's Daniela?
Mom asked. Oh, I'm not sure she'll be able to make it tonight. I wasn't about to let Daniela come here with my parents. I wasn't sure what to expect from them, and I wasn't about to put her in unnecessary danger.
Oh, that's too bad. Tonight I made your favorite, lasagna.
Dad looked at me smiling. Actually, Daniela and I caught a movie and I ate pizza before coming over. I know. I waved my hands in front of me as my parents began to protest. I spoiled my dinner, but maybe Mom could be a dear and make a takeaway plate for Daniela and I.
Fine.
Mom chuckled.
Anything my boy wants, my boy gets.
I watched as Mom and Dad came and placed snacks and water on the table throughout the night. I didn't touch any of it. You really didn't expect me to eat or drink anything from my parents, right? They did tell the strange man that they were going to get the key tonight. No telling what they placed in the food or the juice to knock me out, or worse. When it was 9:30 p.m., I heard them talking angrily in the kitchen. I knew they were talking about me, and I thought that this would be the perfect time to confront them about the key. As I got up to walk towards the kitchen, the doorbell rang. Who are my parents expecting at this hour? I mumbled as I opened the door.
Hi!
Daniela hugged me quickly before stepping into the house. What are you doing here?
I came to tell you the great news.
She dangled a bottle of wine in her hands.
Where are your amazing parents?
I looked at Daniela as she walked into the kitchen to meet my parents. Amazing, I thought as I closed back the door. Daniela thought many things about my parents, but amazing was not one of them. She walked back into the living room and Mom had a tray of glasses in her hand. We all took a glass and I watched as Daniela opened the bottle of wine. What are we toasting to? What's the great news? I looked at her curiously.
I got the promotion,
she said excitedly as she poured wine into everyone's glasses.
Congratulations.
My parents said simultaneously. Something was definitely up because Daniela got that job promotion about a month ago. I knew that Daniela would never hurt me, and she must have a plan for being here. It wasn't long before I was chatting and laughing with my parents. As Daniela poured me a second glass of wine, I began to feel drowsy.
Babe, are you okay?
Daniela put her hand on my shoulder as she looked into my eyes. I shook my head and rubbed my eyes. I don't know, I'm feeling a bit off. I struggled to keep my eyes open. What Daniela said next shook me to my core.
Don't fight it, baby. Close your eyes and rest.
Daniela smiled as she held the key up. That was the last thing I saw before I passed out. When I woke up, whatever I was lying on was damp and soft. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I realized that I was in a cemetery.
Do we really need to get rid of him? We can't risk him running off and telling the police.
Mom responded.
But that's your son.
Actually,
Dad chimed in.
we adopted him shortly after the robbery. His only purpose was to hide the key till Elijah came out. Now we have the key, we no longer need the boy.
I couldn't believe this. The 3 people that I trusted with my life never had my interests at heart. They all just used me.
Let's place him in the coffin quickly. Elijah doesn't like to be kept waiting.
Dad grabbed my legs and dragged me towards the coffin. I fought against him, but between the wine and my recovering arm, I just didn't have the manpower to get away. Dad tossed me in the coffin. Daniela. My voice trailed off as Daniela turned and walked away. The coffin closed and my heart galloped. I could feel them lowering me into the grave, and the sounds of dirt falling onto the coffin filled my ears. How am I going to get out of this? Is this how I'm going to die? I don't know how long I was out, but I woke up to a wet face and Daniela shaking me. I was no longer bound. The coffin was open and my lungs welcomed the fresh air.
Come on, let's go.
Daniela's face and arms were covered in dirt. She helped me to my feet. I looked at the ladder that was leaning against the wall of the grave. She insisted that I go first and she'd bring up the rear. When I got to the top, I lay on the ground, panting.
We don't have time. We have to move.
Daniela said, grabbing my arm. I pulled away. And why should I go with you? You've been working with my parents this whole time.
Boy, I just saved your life. If you don't get into that car right now, you'll be going to jail for a long time. Trust me.
I had no choice but to trust her. She helped me up and we hobbled to the car. Once inside, as we were driving away from the cemetery, I turned to her. I'm confused. Why did you help them if you came back to save me?
It was all a part of my plan. I couldn't tell you about it because I wanted your parents to believe me. Take a look in the back seat.
I spun around, and in the back seat and on the floor of the car were black duffel bags. Is that what I think it is? My eyes widened.
Yep. $53 million, baby.
Daniela squealed as she hit the steering wheel of the car excitedly. Danny, where are my parents? As I looked at her hands, I realized that they were covered in blood.
You mean those people who used you to hide a key for 20 years? They got what they deserved. You don't have to worry about them anymore.
We drove into a hangar and pulled up next to a car. Were my eyes deceiving me? It was the same car that was sitting in my parents' driveway a few hours ago.
Don't worry, just follow my lead.
She got out of the car and ordered 2 men who were dressed in suits to load the bags onto the plane. She held my hand and gently pulled me towards the plane. We boarded, and seated inside was Elijah Houston.
Hi, Daddy.
Daniela kissed Elijah on his cheek. What?
Would you like me to fix you a drink, Dad?
Sure, honey, you know what I like.
Elijah turned to me.
Thank you for securing my key.
Daniela handed him his drink and stood next to me.
Now it's time to get rid of the last loose end.
Elijah looked at Daniela and gulped his drink down.
You are right, Daddy. I did have one loose end to tie up.
I tumbled backwards as Elijah began to choke, and he staggered towards us while holding his throat. Daniela stood her ground and she pushed him back. He folded on the ground in front of her. When he stopped moving, she picked up her father's phone.
Yes, he's dead. We're bringing the body now.
After speaking on the phone, Daniela told me to buckle in because we had a long flight ahead of us. Tonight was a series of bizarre events, one that I will never forget. But now I'm plagued with a decision. Maybe you can help me. Should I call the police for Daniela, or should I stay with her and spend the $53 million? Please leave your suggestions in the comment section.
Hurry up and get yourself ready for church.
We're going to be late again because of you. Pastor Mac doesn't like when we're late.
My parents both screamed like we were somewhere being chased by tigers. What was so urgent or important about church anyway? I mean, I understood that it was important to some people, but there was something seriously wrong with our church. I put on my dress and ran down the stairs without bothering to comb my hair.
You look like a wet cat.
My mom continued screaming. God loves the animals. Leave me alone. Let's just go already. Later, we pulled up to our megachurch with its golden doors and diamond chandeliers.
We will start today's service with the offering. Remember that you will get 100 times the amount you receive, so give generously. The Lord loves a cheerful giver.
Before I continue my story, like this video and subscribe to the channel for 1 week of good luck. Please hit that notification bell too. Thanks! Now, where was I? Thankfully, I didn't have to go through that torture for much longer because Pastor Mac was involved in a huge scandal, and my parents decided that we shouldn't go to that church anymore. I thought I was finally going to have a normal life. See, my parents spent most of their money on the church because they believed that it would cause blessings and more riches. One year, they even forgot to buy me a birthday present because Pastor Mac needed a new jet, and they gave him their entire salary that month. I was so over them and this nonsense. So I was sitting on the couch with my iPad scrolling through Amazon and making a wish list of things I wanted that my parents would finally be able to afford for me. I was home alone because my mom and dad said they were going to the supermarket. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. By 6 o'clock that night, they still hadn't returned, and they weren't answering their phones. I started getting worried. Had they been in a car accident? Struck by lightning? Kidnapped? I always jump to the worst case scenario. I mean, that's just me. Then the doors burst open and my mom and dad walked in smiling. But my mom was holding something, which seemed extremely weird. Mom! Dad! I was so worried! What is that weird thing you're holding in your hands, Mom? She walked to the couch and put it to stand in front of me. It was a pretty doll which was wearing a cute lavender dress. It had long red hair and brown eyes. It looked like any ordinary doll at the toy store, just a little bit prettier. I'm a little too old for those now, Mom. I'm in high school.
This isn't yours. This is a special doll. We have so much to tell you.
Where do we begin?
Started my dad.
We had just finished buying some cleaning supplies at the dollar store when a lovely young lady approached us and asked if we were interested in joining her religion. Well, since we'd already left ours, we figured, hey, why not give a new one a chance? So we followed her to a strange-looking temple and we walked inside to meet the leader. His name is Morgan, and he's awesome.
So, what is this new religion about then?
Well, I don't have all the details, but we had to buy this doll for $200. He said if we put it in our house, we'll have lots of good luck, but we have to treat it well.
Dad? Dolls don't have feelings. My parents both gasped. Then my mom started giving me a lecture.
This particular doll is special. She's not an ordinary doll. She's special.
Okay, I said. At this point, it wasn't worth arguing with my parents. They'd totally lost it. I thought of putting myself up for adoption. Anyway, by the next week, my parents had constructed a whole altar for this doll in the middle of our house. They decorated it with fruits, jewelry, and fancy-looking stones, and put her in the middle. Every time they passed the altar, they'd bow. After 2 more weeks, my dad came home one night with excitement in his voice.
The doll! It's real! It works!
What are you on about now, Dad?
I got a promotion!
Congratulations! That's wonderful!
My mom squealed. That night, they gave the doll her own seat at the dinner table and kept telling her how wonderful she was. But it got worse. My parents spent all of their money buying gifts for the doll, which they had now decided to name Shiny. They bought her a laptop, Nintendo Switch, tons of candy, and lots of clothes. Mom, Dad, it's a doll! How can it use a laptop or play video games? When was the last time you bought me anything?
We keep food in the fridge. That's enough.
Give me that candy! I screamed and snatched a pack of Skittles, my favorite.
Put that back. It's not yours. It belongs to Shiny. You're going to bring us bad luck.
I think you two need to take an IQ test and get some serious help. I screamed and slammed the door. I ate the Skittles so quickly I almost felt like I was going to choke on them. It got worse, you know. You're going to laugh at this next thing they did. After they'd gotten over the Skittles incident, and it actually took days, they told me that Morgan said that they could download a special app on their phone which would tell them what the doll wanted them to know. Mom, Dad, a doll is an inanimate object. It can't speak, especially through an app.
Do not doubt the great Morgan.
How much does this app cost?
$100 a month. It's a subscription.
What? But you haven't bought me anything in ages, and now you're going to spend all that money on a stupid app?
It's not stupid.
No, it's definitely not stupid. You're the stupid ones. I can't understand how I ended up with 2 stupid parents. I screamed and left the room. The next morning, I woke up, and my parents were kneeling in front of the doll with their phones in their hands.
Okay, it says that we can ask it a question and then we can check the app for the answer.
My mom said.
Okay, honey, let's do this. Shiny, am I going to get another promotion next year, or should I leave my job?
They looked at their phones, then my mom sounded puzzled.
It says to transfer $200 into Morgan's account if we want the answer.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
After the transfer was done, the word yes appeared on the app. I rolled my eyes and walked to my room. I was feeling really sad, especially since I'd begged them for new clothes a week ago, and they told me they didn't have enough money. They had money, they were just spending it all on that doll. I had to do something. I began to brainstorm. I could set the doll on fire, but then they'd just buy a new one. I could lock them in their rooms until they came to their senses, but that would be too difficult. What could I do? Then it hit me. Obviously, something was wrong with this Morgan guy. He was definitely a scammer. I just had to find a way to prove it to them. Then they'd understand. They were just being swindled out of their money, and they'd start to spend it on me instead. I looked up Morgan's weird religion online and found the address of the temple. After school the next day, I snuck over there but made sure that no one saw me. Nothing much happened. A few weird-looking couples just like my parents walked in and out with dolls. Many were walking, and I assumed they'd sold their cars just to give all their money to Morgan. I continued sneaking around the place for about a week until I got the evidence I needed. I saw Morgan. I knew it was him because his picture was on the website. There were some people inside adoring him, looking at him like he was some kind of savior. Then they left, and it was just me and him. Me behind the window where he couldn't see, of course. He picked up his phone and started to have a conversation. At the same time, I took mine out and started recording him.
People are so dumb, but that works to my benefit. I can't believe they bought this story about the doll and the app. I've made about $3 million so far. When we hit 10 mil, we're gonna leave for Tahiti, honey. I've already spotted the house I want to buy for us. Yeah, it's gonna be great. I just have to get these idiots to continue to give me more money. Do you have any more ideas? I can't wait for us to run away together. We'll be rich, filthy rich.
I'd recorded all I needed. I ran all the way home and entered my living room gasping. My parents were kneeling in front of the doll and putting necklaces around its neck. I rolled my eyes. Mom, Dad, I have something to show you. Morgan is a scammer. His religion isn't real. None of this is real. They looked puzzled, so I showed them my phone and played Morgan's recording.
I don't believe it.
My mom said.
Neither do I,
Echoed my dad.
Why did you try to frame such a good man? Such a wonderful man who has brought blessings to our family. You're grounded.
My mom screamed. Wouldn't you be confused? I think I was more than confused. I walked up to my room feeling defeated. How did two stupid people make such a smart person like me? Was I adopted? Well, it's time to consider Plan B then, I thought. I started a YouTube channel and uploaded the video I took of Morgan. Then I shared it to all my social media platforms, and I also posted it on Morgan's Facebook page. Within an hour, many people had seen it and reshared it. Morgan deleted it from his page, but many people had already saved it. It was spreading like wildfire, but mostly by people who were making fun of the organization. It was only a matter of time until...
Mary, you ungrateful little brat. What have you done?
My parents barged into my room. They were fuming. What? I smiled sweetly, pretending I had no idea what they were upset about.
Why did you release that fake video? This is going to ruin everything. He's going to lose followers.
My mom started crying. At this point, I really didn't know anymore. It was like the stupid fairy had hit them both on the head with a massive baseball bat. They left my room, and I thought that maybe I needed to get more proof so they'd believe me. It was a Friday night, but they worked on Saturdays. I decided that I would leave the house and return before they got back. Because I was grounded, remember? I was going to go to Morgan's temple to snoop around some more. The next day, I left home right after my parents. As I approached the temple, I noticed that my mom's car was parked outside. I walked through the door and looked around. There was no one inside, just a bunch of spooky-looking dolls all over the place. Ugh, I shuddered. Then I heard some muffled voices coming from what seemed like a little office in the back. I walked over there and looked inside. Then I nearly fainted. My mom was wrapped in Morgan's arms and they were kissing. I quickly took out my phone and began recording. I'd show my dad and we'd leave together and never look back. There was no way I could make this up. and I hoped it would be enough to convince my dad to leave this awful religion and my mom. I ran out of the building without saying anything. I went home and cried in my room until my dad came home. Dad, look! Now you definitely can't say I made this up. Look what Mom was doing while we were convinced she was at work. I put the phone in front of his face and let him watch his wife kiss another man. At that moment, my mom walked in.
What's going on?
We should be asking you that question. You're cheating on Dad with some religious freak. My parents exchanged glances and burst out laughing. Then they fell to the floor because they were laughing so much. What the hell are you guys laughing at?
Sweetie, you're too smart for us. But we're happy we made a smart girl. We're sorry to put you through this.
My mom said. What?
So here's the thing. We were tired of losing all of our money to religious leaders, so when this woman approached us at the dollar store, we thought this was the perfect opportunity to get it all back, and more. We decided that your mom would seduce Morgan to make him believe she'd help him with his scams. We got him to put all the money in our account for safekeeping, we said. He genuinely believes that your mom cares about him and that they're going to move to Tahiti to live the perfect life together.
So, the person he was talking to on the phone, when I recorded him, that was you, Mom?
Yes, it was.
They burst out laughing again. So why did you need to bring the doll here? Why did you buy all of that stuff?
Because watching your reactions was hilarious. We had so much fun.
I can't believe this.
Anyway, we've got a few million in our bank account now, and I suppose we should move before Morgan finds out anything.
Where are we going?
Well, Morgan already bought the house in Tahiti, but all of the legal documents are in my name. Come on, get packing.
It turns out that my parents weren't as stupid as I thought. I typed the story from my awesome bedroom with its huge windows and magnificent view of the sea. Since we now have lots of money, I get anything I ask my parents for. Our relationship has improved a lot. Oh, and that doll? I gave her to a little girl I met on the beach. 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 Girl I met on...